there, welcome back to FemHealth Talk with me, Kellen Mudoni. Thank you so much for watching the previous episodes. FemHealth Talk had just taken a very short holiday break, but now we are back with so many topics about female reproductive health. And in today's episode, I want us to look at vaginal discharge. I want us to understand what constitutes normal vaginal discharge and what constitutes abnormal vaginal discharge. And now we are going to use three of our senses. That is, how does vaginal discharge look like? All right. How does or should vaginal discharge smell like? And how does vaginal discharge feel like to the touch? So, what is vaginal discharge? Yeah, in the previous episode, we learned that the vagina is a self cleansing organ. All right, and we also learned that the inside of the vagina is naturally moist. So, a discharge is basically the product of the self cleansing process of the vagina. So, it is comprised of the mucus that is produced when the vagina is moisturizing itself. It's also comprised of dead cells and also dead bacteria. Remember, we said that there is normal bacteria that grows in the vagina, and it is responsible for keeping the vagina pH at an acidic level. So, basically, the discharge is just the products of that normal self cleansing aspect of the vagina. It is very important for us to be very self-aware when you're going to take a pee or when you're showering or basically throughout the day. It is very important to be aware of how of how the vaginal discharge looks like. So when you go taking a pee and you look at your panty, it is very important to learn or know what normal discharge looks like and what abnormal discharge looks like or smells like or feels like. And once you notice abnormal changes in your discharge, it is very important to go visit a physician, because majority of the time that means that there's an infection that the body is fighting. It is very important to go see the doctor. Yes, I've basically mixed different colors of my eyeshadow palette with yogurt, just to be creative and show us what normal discharge looks like and what abnormal discharge looks like. So, first of all, this is what normal discharge should look like. I know you cannot see it. It's supposed to be white or cream white in color, white or cream white, and the consistency, it should be thick like this. All right. So when it dries and becomes flaky, but the normal discharge is basically white or cream white in color. During ovulation or when a woman is sexually aroused or at the peak of a woman's fertility, meaning that this type of discharge is a sign that you're very, very fertile, and it's usually egg white and clear in color and very stretchy in consistency. So you see that white part of the egg, it's usually like egg white, and the consistency is very, very clear. Like this is just egg white. I've just cracked an egg. So when you find that your discharge is clear or egg white and it is very, very stretchy, that means that you are during your ovulation, or you are sexually aroused, or you are at the peak of fertility, meaning that you can get pregnant, because the cervix is preparing itself for fertilization. So no need to be alarmed. So that is the two types of normal discharge. What should normal vaginal discharge smell like? And it's a very tricky question because it's like asking ourselves, what should meat smell like? Meat smells like meat, right? But if you find that meat has gone bad, it produces a foul smell or a very bad smell. Similarly, discharge basically smells like normal discharge. But if at all you start noticing a foul smell, bad smell, fishy smell, then that is abnormal discharge. So normal discharge should not smell like vanilla or strawberry or roses or flowers or all these other kind of things. No, no, no. Vaginal discharge basically smells like vaginal discharge, but when you start noticing foul smell, harufu mbaya, that you can relate it to maybe a fishy smell or a foul smell or something rotten, that is a cause for alarm, and you should see the doctor as soon as possible. And most of the time, that bad smell is usually accompanied by other colored discharge. So, the first type of abnormal discharge is this discharge. Okay, it is cream white or somewhat yellow, but the consistency looks like cottage cheese. All right, and for me to show you, this is how it looks like. Very lumpy, very thick, very lumpy, you know. Yeah, that is a sign of a yeast infection. So if the vaginal discharge is cream white or yellowish, but it is very lumpy, that is a sign of a yeast infection and you need to get it checked by the physician. The other type of abnormal discharge is a yellow discharge. This looks a bit too yellow, but if the discharge is yellowish, that is a sign of an infection, and it is very important to go see the doctor. And again, like I said, it is usually accompanied by other signs and symptoms. So you'll have a yellow discharge, foul smell. You'll also have burning or itchy irritation. Or burning sensation or itchiness, that is a sign of an infection. So, yellow discharge, sign of infection. There is also the green discharge, greenish. I think I went overboard with the greenish discharge. And how I can describe it is that you see when you have a cold or a flu, and when you blow the sputum, or rather when you cough and you produce sputum, that greenish sputum, or in Swahili we call it kikohozi, discharge that looks greenish is a sign of an infection. So the other type of discharge is the pinkish discharge. I think I may have done too much pigment, but pinkish or light pink discharge. And depending on when you are experiencing it, it can either mean two things. Number one, implantation bleeding. So when the fertilized egg implants on the uterus, you experience some light spotting or production of some light pink or pinkish discharge, which is a sign of implantation bleeding, which is implantation bleeding and a sign of pregnancy. Number two, if you experience this light pink discharge after sex or after sexual intercourse, it might mean that you have experienced some irritation, because if you're not sexually aroused and the vaginal wall is not very moisturized, it can cause inflammation or bruising that can also lead to bleeding. So if at all you experience this after sex, it's called postcoital bleeding. Sometimes it's a sign of a bruised cervix or a cervical infection. So you also need to go to see the physician if you experience postcoital bleeding. Again, if you experience a red discharge, bright red, not the normal dark red that is associated with menstrual bleeding. No, no, no. I'm talking about bright red. Bright red discharge can also be a sign of infection, right? And if at all you also experience this bright red after sexual intercourse, or what we call postcoital bleeding, please see a physician, because it can also mean that there's an infection or you have a bruised cervix. All right. If you experience this bright red and you are pregnant, again, please see the doctor, because majority of the time you are experiencing a miscarriage, right? So if at all you're in your first trimester and you experience this bright red blood and you are pregnant, it is a sign of a miscarriage. So finally, we have the brownish or rather brown discharge, and usually you will experience this towards the end of your menstruation. So this means that the menstrual phase is over, and now you're going towards the normal discharge, the whitish discharge. So when you get to see the brownish discharge, it is usually towards the end of the menstruation, and that means that the menstrual phase is now coming to an end, and now you're getting into the normal color discharge. So with that, we conclude the topic on normal and abnormal discharge. So please allow me to caution you that the vagina should not smell like vanilla or strawberry or roses or perfume, and anybody that is selling you products to insert in your vagina to have it smelling any other way other than the normal smell of the vagina is an enemy to your reproductive health, because you're going to alter the vagina pH. You're even going to destroy the normal mechanisms and the functioning of the vagina in the name of having it smelling good. And it's going to be very, very detrimental to your reproductive health. So just wash your vagina with warm water and a cloth. And we're going to talk more about this in terms of genital care. How should we groom our genitalia? How should we wash our genitalia? What should we do to ensure that our genitalia is clean and healthy? And we're going to talk about this in episode 5. Thank you so much for staying to the end. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.